What was the first PlayStation big-hitting RPG? The launch day in Japan saw crime crackers, but it didn't really draw me into its world like some games have. Other early releases like King's Field were not really my kind of game, and Beyond the Beyond was beyond the pale. There were other interesting games like Tokyo Dungeon and Sengoku Cyber Fujimaru Jigoku-hen, both of which I really need to get reviewed on the heap sometime. But in 1995 for the PlayStation, I'd say Ark the Lad and Suikoden were by far the best RPGs that came out. However, there was meant to have been a third in the first full year of the PlayStation in Japan, Popolocrois Monogatari. Popolocrois, as I'll call it from here on, is a JRPG for the PlayStation based on the manga by Yousuke Tamori that Sony Computer Entertainment purchased the rights to and became a prominent media property in its own right. In fact, it was intended as a very early release for the system, being revealed way back at the Tokyo Toy Show of June 1994, before the PlayStation was even released in Japan and was due out by mid-1995. However, it was July 1996 when it eventually was released. The name comes from a mixture of Italian and French to signify people crossing paths and coming together, and that's pretty much what happens, as does in any good RPG. To set the bar of this review, why do I play RPGs? Well, it's because I like the sense of going on an adventure and becoming attached to a group of characters and enjoying the story as I play. Of course, RPG stories can become a little bit formulaic to say the least at times, treading the well-worn trope of a dark force threatening the existence of a civilization and a party of people that set out to overthrow this. In this regard, Popolocrois doesn't deviate from that, but what this game has going for it is its excellent gameplay, a well-executed story which wraps you up in an adventure, interesting if not particularly complex characters, great presentation, and charm by the bucket load. You play as Pietro, the crown prince of the kingdom of Popolocrois, and the story starts on your 10th birthday. Your father, the king, has his crown stolen by Gami Gami Devil, so right from the outset, we've met the villain, right? Well, your initial adventure revolves around recovering the crown from Gami Gami, but as it turns out, he's a little bit on the illiterate side, a genius, but talks in quite a childlike way, and it's hard not to find him a little bit endearing with his amusing way of talking. As it turns out, there's a bit more going on than just a king's crown being stolen, because your mother, who you have long believed to have been dead, is in fact in a coma in a tower adjacent to the castle, and apparently could not be awoken from her slumber. Her soul is not with her body though, and instead apparently locked away in the dark world. But why? Overall, it's really engaging, and I felt very much swept up in the adventure. But there's more than just the story that needs to make the grade. There's the game as well. The game is split into 4 main chapters of unequal length and a post-game epilogue with about 40 hours of gameplay at a guess. Talking of which, gameplay is orthodox when it comes to Japanese RPGs. There is story exposition, preparation and resting in towns, followed by heading out into the field or dungeons where random battles occur. Unlike some JRPGs, these occur on the main map, but unlike, say, Chrono Trigger, you cannot see the enemies on the field. What attacks you is very much random. Battle mechanics are a really important part of any RPG, as when a game gets it wrong, it can be very repetitive and frustrating, but get it right and it can become very tactical and interesting. Popolocrois is very much towards the latter, thankfully. Once engaged in battle, you have the option to either fight or escape, and then within that, manual and auto-battling options, from which you can choose different styles of auto-battling such as freely attacking enemies, biasing towards defense, taking out the strongest enemy first, and more. Battles take place within a grid much like a strategy RPG, but each character is pretty free to move anywhere if there's room for them. This allows setting up defensive positions and resting those who are faltering, as well as the chance to attack from behind or to the side of your enemies to increase your attack's effectiveness. All characters have their basic attack, special attacks and defense options, which I'll get to in a moment, and slightly hidden is the menu for accessing taunts and items, which is accessed by pushing right on a controller in the action menu. Each character has a guts meter, which at the start of a battle, this guts meter has a full blue gauge. As you attack with your standard attacks though, the effectiveness of your strikes goes down as the guts meter drains. In order to recharge this, you need to choose to defend for a turn and the gauge will begin to refill. eventually exceeding the blue gauge and entering a new yellow gauge. Attack strength increases relative to the guts meter's charge level, so you need to strategize carefully. In addition, some characters have magic. Much like Grandia, these level up the more you use them. For example, Narcia's wind sheet attack, once leveled to level 11, attacks all of the enemies rather than just one. Therefore, there is a great incentive to use your magic. MP is refilled when you rest in the game or use an item to recharge your MP. Notably though, when you level up in Popolocrois, your HP and MP is not restored, so be careful. Items also have a bit of strategy about them, as each character can only have 2 items assigned to them. Out in the field, you can use any item you like at any time you choose, but once in battle, each character only has access to one of those 2 chosen items, so choose wisely. In addition, like Tengai Maki or Jiraiya a few reviews back, if everyone is slain in battle, then you'll restart at your most recent save point, and with half of your money, so make sure you stuff your money into a piggy bank to prevent this happening. There's a bit more to the battle system, but it is fairly deep and has some interesting quirks such as the limited access to items, but I generally didn't get tired of the battles. Some of the enemy design is a little bit uninspired though, with a few palette swaps here and there, and the enemies towards the end of the game did feel a little bit phoned in, but overall the game has an engaging system here that I enjoyed playing. You just have to play somewhat cautiously because some battles will be pretty darn tough. So having touched on the enemy design, let's talk about the visuals. The game is played in an isometric 2D pixel art style that packs plenty of detail with lots of animated details to boot. It doesn't entirely look like a game that would have been impossible on a Super Nintendo, but the graphics are still great. In fact, I would say that suggesting that some late Super Nintendo titles looked so good says more about the caliber of artistry and developers that worked on that system than it being a knock on this look of the game on the PlayStation. The only downside is that the isometric view can make navigating around some of the more enclosed areas a little tricky, as using the diagonal movement is quite important in this game, but it rarely became an issue to the point of frustration. Sound-wise, I really liked the soundtrack to the game, though the loops seemed on a slightly short side at times, which became a little bit noticeable. Parts of the story are voiced, and magic is summoned with voice acting as well. At various intervals, the game also has FMVs, which, though fairly low in resolution, still look great, especially on an old CRT, and are a definite level up on the Super Nintendo era. What is worth noting though, is the anime did not air until 2 years after this game's release, so the popularity of the game speaks to the resurgence of Popolocrois' fortunes in Japan. So much so, Popolocrois became a member of the Best series in Japan, analogous to North America's Greatest Hits and Europe's Platinum series of games. The last thing I will mention is that at various points in the game, omiyage or souvenirs can be bought, which you can then arrange to be sent back to the castle, where they will collate in the attic above your bedroom. These serve no purpose in this game, but I am informed they play a role in the game's sequel, Popolocrois, which is Popolocrois' epilogue. So on to the rating. Well, let's first deal with the game overall. This is easily a great game, or 4 stars out of 5 on my rating scheme. It has its quirks, but the combat system that involves an element of strategy rather than just slashing away blindly is what any decent RPG needs. It doesn't approach the greatness of Grandia's battle system, which I still feel is one of the best ever devised, but it's certainly up there. Presentationally, for a 1 CD game, this is really good stuff, continuing the grand tradition of Super Nintendo RPGs into the 32-bit era, at least for the time. Playing this has got me so stoked to play the other games in the saga, so look out for those in reviews to come. Looking at the Japanese level, I'm going to grade this as conversational, but with a caveat. There is a lot of casual speech in this game, and it's not just Futsuke Japanese. Characters speak with dialect, and affected dialect is a big part of the humour and characterisation in this game. I'm going to make a special video on this topic soon. In addition, you will encounter some kanji that goes as high as JLPT N1 level, but it is one of the more accessible RPGs for Japanese learners. You might just miss out on some of the finer details, but the overall understanding of what you're doing, what's going on and what to do next should be pretty clear, enough for those who are somewhere around JLPT N3 or N2 level. I think if you're studying Japanese, this is an RPG that is worth tackling, as it will level you up. For those of you with zero Japanese or very basic travel Japanese, this is going to be one tough game to navigate with the kanji in the menus and the dialogue. This will impact your enjoyment, and for those in at camp, there has been a recent English translation patch which you may want to try, which I've linked to in the video description. Alternatively, there is a PSP release that combined the first and second games into an abridged game that was translated from Japanese. I want to go back to my original sentence. I play RPGs to go on a journey, and if it's a good one, I delight in being immersed in a world and a series of characters that I can build sympathies with. I'm a kind of game player that will even cry when a character departs that I've become attached to. I'm looking at you, Sue, from Grandia. Popolocrois did give me the feels, and whilst the story is nothing too groundbreaking, it's told very well. All the things this game does, voice acting, beautiful graphics with some 32-bit glitz, FMV sequences with voice acting, CD quality music, is easy to overlook today. But in the mid-90s, this is what we all dreamed of in games, being in immersive adventures that delighted the senses. Popolocrois is one of the PlayStation's greats, and it really deserves to be better known outside of Japan. As always, like, subscribe and all of that shit, and also check out this rad Rubbish Heap merch, available worldwide on Redbubble and Amazon. See the links below for how to purchase. I've been Saki Endo, and this has been a Rubbish Heap. じゃあねーね。
誕生日おめでとう。
おめでとう。さあ、開けてごらん。
ポポロのテーマ、ポポロクロイス。
アニメチックロマンチック RPG ポポロクロイス物語
プレイステーション。
夏休みは何をして過ごされましたか？
トロッコに乗っていました。モンスターを集めていました。
クジラのマックに乗りました。
それって
アニメチックロマンチック RPG ポポロクロイス物語大人気。
プレイステーション。